Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Zhaffira Afifa. I'm from 5th class. And today, I would like to do a presentation about variable and their types. So, let me start our presentations today. Before we start it, do you know what is variable? Okay, a variable is a picture atau a measurable concept with a certain scale whose value can change. In doing a research, concept is not just enough in formulating a problem or a phenomenon. To measure those things, variable help us to define something so that it produces valid information. In a study, research variables have a very important role because they serve as a basis for preparing data collections, tools and methods, as well as a means of testing hypotheses. Variables have the use of preparing the best possible tools and methods to be more conscious when used to collect data and analyze it appropriately. In addition, variables also play an important role when doing the hypothesis that will be the basis of the research. A good research variable currently have the requirements. There are several requirements that consist of a good research variable. First is relevant to research objectives. Second is observable and measurable. Third is, in a study, variables need to be identified, classified, and defined operationally clearly and firmly. These requirements is needed to avoid errors in data collections and processing in hypothesis testing. And there are several types of variables. First is the types of variables that based on the relationship between variables. Second is study design. Third is types of variables based on measurement scale. And for the relationship between variables, there are three variables. First is independent, second is dependent variable, third is control variable. And in study design, there are two variables. First is active variable and second is attribute variable. And based on measurement scale, there are two variables. First is category variables and second is continuous variables. So, in my presentation, I would like to explain more about continuous variables. Continuous variables are variables whose data can be operated mathematically. Data for continuous variables are obtained from the measurement process so that the data can be in fractions or in decimal form. For example, is 3.5 meters, average of 7.3. Incontinuous data can also be in the form of integers, but these data groups allow for variation in the form of fractions. For example, score, ranking, age, wage, length, and distance. There are several of the following are the types of data in continuous variables. First is ordinal data. Ordinal data is ranking data. For example, first winner, second winner, and third winner. And these numbers have the meaning. First winner is certainly smarter than second winner. And second types of data in continuous variables is interval data. Interval data is data that can be used in arithmetic operations. In addition, interval data have a clear distinction between each data. For example, for interval data is like first lesson in one SKS have a time about 50 minutes, and meanwhile the second lessons are 2 SKS, but have the time about 100 minutes. The range between first lesson and second lessons is about 15 minutes, so it's called interval data. And third is ratio data. Ratio data is the most complex measurement data and can certainly be used in calculations of ratios. The numbers in the ratio data are true numbers, not just a symbol. For example of ratio data is like data on body weight. Weight A has a weight about 45 kilograms. Meanwhile, B has weight about 19 kilograms. So when it is viewed using in which ratio scale, A is the half of the body weight of B. So before I ended my presentation, I would like to conclude about a variable. So the conclusion is variable is a picture or a concept with a certain scale whose value can change, that it is used in research to serve as a basis for preparing data collections. So before we prepare the data collections, we must have a variables. And good research variables certainly have several requirements so that it is avoid error in data collections and processing in hypothesis testing. And there are several types of variables based on the relationship between variables, based on study design, and based on measurement scale. Based on measurement scale, there is continuous variable variables that data can be operated mathematically, that can in the form of that the data can in the form of fractions or in decimal form, and the data can be in the form of integers. And the next conclusion is in continuous variables there are four types of data. First is ordinal data, that it is ranking data. Second is interval data, that can be used in arithmetic operations. And third is ratio data, that the most complex measurement data. And fourth is nominal data, is a type of variable that can be grouped separately or discrete. So I think that's all for my presentations today. If during my presentation I have a mistake directly or indirectly, I hope the listeners or the audiences can forgive my mistakes. I will end it with Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye bye.